Good day, people. I'm Hira Deepika. In Ponniyin Selvan, this is episode number 6. In the secret meeting held in Samburaya's palace, when discussions on succession to the throne was discussed, a voice from the gathering asked, when Aditya Karigalar has already been coronated as the crown prince 2 years ago, what is left to think about? Pazhuvettarayar replied, what you said is true, but I'd like to know if any one of us was consulted before the coronation took place. Each one of us gathered here belongs to well-established clans that have strived for more than 4 generations to acquire the eminence of the Chola Empire at present. Even today, sons from our family and clan are engaged in warfare in Lanka. But the emperor did not consult our opinion for the decision on successor to the throne. The Chola kingdom has been growing in the past 100 years and is expanding day by day. Today, the empire spreads from Cape Comorin in the south to the Tungabhadra Krishna rivers in the north. The Pandya kingdom, Nanjal kingdom, the Chera kingdom, Thondai territories, Phagi, Gangapadi, Nulampadi, Vaithumba territories, the Chitpuli nation, Bana lands, Kudagu hill territories, that is where Ponni river rises. All these lands are now under Chola control and are paying tribute. The Chola tiger flag flies in all these countries. Only Lanka in the south, Vengi and Rashtrakuta kingdoms in the north are yet to come under our sway, said Pazhuvettarayar. Malavarayar intervened. Yes, there are 2 reasons for Lanka, Vengi, Kalinga and Rashtrakuta for not coming under our suzerainty. First cause is the northern commander-in-chief Prince Aditya Karigalar, and the other is the commander of the southern armies Arulmozhivarmar. I agree with the reasons given by Malavarayar. For the last 100 years, the practice for appointing a commander in the Chola kingdom was that brave warriors with the experience of several campaigns would be selected as generals of the army and as commander-in-chief. But the elder prince, the commander of the northern armies, is not planning for any campaigns against the twin territories of the Rashtrakutas or against Vengi, that is today's Eluru of Andhra in the northeast. Instead, he is building a golden palace for his own dwelling. He embeds rubies and diamonds in the walls of that palace. Not even a single copper coin from all the treasures captured from the campaigns in the Gangapadi, Nulampadi and Kudagu territories has been sent back to the treasury in the capital till now. In addition, let us keep arriving for the emperor from his beloved elder son to come and stay for a while in that newly constructed golden palace. Is the emperor going to Kanchi? Asked another alarmed voice. You all need not worry about that. My brother, the commander of Thanjavur, and I are there to take care that nothing like that will take place. No one can enter the fort of Thanjavur without the consent of the younger Pazhuvettarayar. None can interview the emperor, nor can they give letters without my knowledge. Twice or maybe even thrice I've stopped letters that have arrived for him. Please continue listening. There's even more. Than the deeds of the crown prince, the activities of Prince Arulmozhivarmar, who has gone to Lanka, are peculiar. For generations and over several hundreds of years, the policy that our ancestors have followed is, if our armies invade enemy territories, the food supplies and payments for our armies have to be procured from those enemy lands. The wealth to pay our army must be captured in those enemy regions, and the excess treasures should be sent back to the government treasury in the capital city. But Arulmozhivarmar has made me send shiploads of supplies for 10 times in the last 1 year from Tanjavur. The reasoning of Prince Arulmozhivarmar for his behavior is even more peculiar, which is, if we try to procure supplies for our armies from the territories we invade, a lot of inconvenience and displeasure will be caused to the civilians. After winning our battles against their kings, should we rule them, and that too with the complete approval of the people? Because of these undertakings of both the princes, the treasury and granary in the royal palace at Tanjavur often becomes empty. I am compelled to levy more taxes on you and also collect tributes from all of you. Had I not considered the welfare of this country as most important thing, I would have given up my position long ago. Oh no, never. Your holding on these positions give us several assurances. Why haven't you spoken about these things to the emperor? I've personally spoken to the emperor about it several times. Every time I am being told to ask the elder Prati or the younger Prati. The words of Emperor's elder aunt, the elder Prati, Sembian Mahadevi, are like gospel to him. I feel the emperor has lost the capability of thinking for himself. And also, he wants me to consult with his beloved daughter, the younger Prati Kundavai. I've never heard of such interference by women in the politics of the nation in the history of Chola kingdom. I cannot tolerate such humiliation anymore. I ask of all of you who have gathered here to discuss and let me know what can be done to fix this situation. For a while, the men in that meeting argued amongst themselves. Sambhuvaraya said, "Don't we have to answer to the requests of Pazhuvettarayar? Looking at the moon, it already seems to be hours past midnight." I have a certain doubt. A few others also, like me, may have a similar reservation. If Pazhuvettarayar promises not to be angry, I'd like to ask about it, said Vananga Mudiyar. It is customary for me to show all my anger in the battlefield against my enemies and not against my friends. Therefore, go ahead with your question without any hesitation. We all know that Pazhuvettarayar married a young girl about 2 years ago. Some people say that in all matters, Pazhuvettarayar consults and acts according to the wishes of the young queen he married recently. They say that he even acts according to her direction in matters of the state. It is also said that he takes his young queen along wherever he goes, said Vananga Mudiyar. With an angry voice, Sambhuvarayar interrupted. We object to such words by Vananga Mudiyar. It is totally indecorous to ask such improper questions of our beloved leader, our chief guest, wrote Sambhuvarayar while drawing his sword from its scabbard. Pazhuvettarayar replied patiently, "It is true that I married a young girl after my 55th year. I love that girl and she is also in love with me. According to the ancient tenets of this Tamil country, we married each other willingly. And is it a crime to take my legally wedded wife wherever I go? It is true that I take her with me to visit several places, but it is inaccurate to say that I consider the young queen's opinion in matters of the state. I don't do that. If so, I request Paluvettarayar to clear another doubt. Why has this palanquin, which should have stayed in the women's courtyard, is here in our confidential meeting? Is there someone inside the closed palanquin? I heard somebody clearing their throat and the sound of a jingle of bangles a little while ago. Is it not right what Vananga Mudiyar asked? Why should the palanquin be placed where the confidential meeting was taking place? Let's catch upon that in detail in our next episode. Please do like, share my videos and subscribe to my channel to continue listening to this wonderful novel. Thank you.